In the quiet town of Harmony Creek lived Mr. Thompson, an elderly gentleman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He wasn't just any resident, he was a war veteran, a hero who had served his country with unwavering dedication. The townsfolk knew him well, often stopping to chat with him about the weather or his beloved garden. He was a fixture at the local diner, where he'd sip his coffee and share stories of his time in the service, always ending with a chuckle and a reminder to appreciate the simple things in life. Mr. Thompson was more than just a veteran, he was a pillar of the community. He volunteered at the local library, reading stories to children and helping them with their homework. He always had a kind word for everyone he met, and his warm demeanor made him a favorite among young and old alike. He was a man of simple pleasures, content with his quiet life and grateful for the blessings he had. His gentle nature and unwavering optimism made him a beacon of hope in Harmony Creek, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, kindness and compassion could always prevail. But Harmony Creek, like any town, had its shadows. A group of teenage boys, led by the somewhat rebellious Jake Miller, often disrupted the peace. Jake, with his messy brown hair and a perpetual scowl, was known for his mischievous antics. He wasn't inherently bad, but he often made poor choices, influenced by his friends' desire for excitement. They saw rules as suggestions and respect as a sign of weakness. The group consisted of 4 boys: Jake, the self-proclaimed leader; Mikey, the joker who always had a wisecrack ready; Alex, the quiet one who mostly followed the crowd; and Ben, the one who often hesitated before joining in on their schemes. They spent their afternoons skateboarding through town, leaving behind a trail of minor chaos, overturned trash cans, loud music, and occasionally, disrespectful comments directed at the older residents. They saw themselves as edgy and cool, oblivious to the impact of their actions on the community they inhabited. Their parents often warned them to behave, but their words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The boys were a small storm brewing in the otherwise calm haven of Harmony Creek. One sunny afternoon, Mr. Thompson decided to walk to Miller's grocery store, a small, family-owned shop on the edge of town. He needed a few items for his famous apple pie, a treat he often baked for the neighborhood children. The walk was a bit longer than he preferred these days, his old war injury sometimes acting up, but he enjoyed the fresh air and the chance to wave to familiar faces. He carefully selected his apples, sugar, and spices, paying Mrs. Miller with a smile and a warm "Thank you, dear." As he left the store, 2 heavy bags in hand, he felt a familiar twinge in his knee. He adjusted his grip, taking smaller steps, his brow furrowed slightly with the effort. He walked slowly down Main Street, past the old oak tree where he used to play as a child, past the town hall with its freshly painted facade. He was almost home, just a few more blocks, when he saw them. The group of boys, led by Jake, were loitering near the park, their skateboards resting against a bench. He hoped they wouldn't notice him. Unfortunately, Jake's sharp eyes had already spotted the elderly man. A smirk crept across his face as he nudged Mikey. "Look who it is," he whispered, loud enough for Mr. Thompson to hear. Old Man Thompson, struggling with his groceries. "Need some help, I bet." Mikey snickered. "Maybe he's got some prune juice in those bags. Or denture adhesive." Alex remained silent, shifting uncomfortably. Ben chewed on his lip, looking from Mr. Thompson to Jake, a conflict brewing within him. Jake, fueled by his friend's laughter, stepped forward, blocking Mr. Thompson's path. "Hey, old-timer," he called out, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Need a hand there? Those bags look awfully heavy for someone your age." He winked at his friends, anticipating their amusement. The air crackled with tension as Mr. Thompson stopped, his kind eyes meeting Jake's challenging gaze. The moment hung heavy, a silent prelude to the disrespect that was about to unfold. Mr. Thompson sighed softly, trying to maintain his composure. "No, thank you, boys," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I can manage." He attempted to step around Jake, but Jake shifted, blocking him again. "Oh, come on, old-timer," Jake persisted, his voice louder now. "Don't be stubborn. We're just trying to be helpful." He glanced at his friends, who were now openly laughing. "Yeah, Grandpa," Mikey chimed in. Wouldn't want you to pull a hip or something. Then who would bake all those delicious, bland cookies? Jake then noticed the small, faded army cap Mr. Thompson was wearing. Hey, look, guys, a real-life war hero, he exclaimed, his tone mocking. Did you win the war all by yourself, old man? Or just polish the general's boots? Alex winced at Jake's words, while Ben looked down at his shoes, shame creeping into his eyes. Mr. Thompson's face remained impassive, but a flicker of pain flashed in his eyes. He had hoped to avoid this confrontation, but it seemed impossible. He just wanted to get home. Mr. Thompson tightened his grip on the grocery bags, his knuckles turning white. He knew engaging would only make the situation worse, so he tried to ignore their words, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other. But Jake wasn't finished. He reached out and snatched one of the bags from Mr. Thompson's hand. The bag ripped, and apples, sugar, and spices tumbled onto the sidewalk, scattering in every direction. Mr. Thompson gasped, his heart sinking. The ingredients for his apple pie, ruined. Oops, Jake said, feigning innocence. Butterfingers. The other boys roared with laughter, except for Alex and Ben, who exchanged uneasy glances. Mr. Thompson stared at the spilled groceries, his face etched with disappointment. It wasn't just the ruined pie, it was the blatant disrespect, the casual cruelty. He bent down slowly, his aching knee protesting, and began to pick up the scattered apples, his movements deliberate but weary. He spoke softly, almost to himself, some things never change. This simple act of trying to salvage his groceries seemed to enrage Jake even more. Just as Jake was about to escalate the situation further, a booming voice shattered the tense silence. What in the Sam Hill is going on here? All heads turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man striding towards them. He wore a faded army t-shirt and cargo pants, his face weathered and lined, but his eyes sharp and piercing. It was Sergeant Major Davis, a retired veteran and an old friend of Mr. Thompson's. He had been walking through the park when he witnessed the entire scene unfold. Sergeant Major Davis glared at the teenagers, his gaze hardening as he took in the spilled groceries and Mr. Thompson's hunched figure. He recognized Mr. Thompson instantly and felt a surge of anger at the sight of him being harassed. He had served alongside Mr. Thompson many years ago, and he knew the sacrifices he had made for his country. Seeing these disrespectful youths tormenting him ignited a fire within him. He wouldn't stand for it. The boys were about to learn a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. Sergeant Major Davis marched right up to Jake, his imposing figure towering over the teenager. "You," he said, his voice like gravel, "pick up those groceries. All of them. Now." Jake, usually so quick with a smart remark, found himself speechless. He had never encountered anyone quite like Sergeant Major Davis. The man's presence exuded authority, and Jake suddenly felt very small and foolish. The laughter died in Mikey's throat, and even Alex and Ben stood frozen, their eyes wide with apprehension. "And you," Sergeant Major Davis continued, turning his steely gaze to the rest of the group, "are going to help him. Every last apple, every grain of sugar. You made this mess, you clean it up." He pointed a thick finger at the spilled groceries. "And then, you are all going to apologize to Mr. Thompson. Do you understand me?" The boys nodded meekly, the bravado they had displayed moments before completely vanished. They had clearly underestimated the consequences of their actions. They were now facing the wrath of a man who knew a thing or two about discipline and respect. The teenagers scrambled to obey, their earlier arrogance replaced with a frantic energy. Jake, his face flushed with shame, knelt down and began gathering the apples, his hands trembling slightly. Mikey, usually so quick with a joke, silently collected the spilled sugar, avoiding eye contact with Sergeant Major Davis. Alex and Ben, relieved to have a clear directive, worked diligently alongside their friends, carefully placing the salvaged groceries back into the torn bag. The sidewalk, moments before a scene of disrespect and cruelty, was now a flurry of activity as the boys worked to undo the damage they had caused. The air was thick with unspoken apologies, a silent acknowledgement of their wrongdoing. Mr. Thompson watched them, his expression unreadable, as he leaned heavily on his cane. He had seen many things in his life, but the sudden shift in these boys' behavior was unexpected. He wondered if they truly understood the gravity of their actions, or if they were simply afraid of Sergeant Major Davis. Only time would tell. With the groceries mostly recovered, Jake stepped forward, his head bowed. He shuffled his feet, avoiding Mr. Thompson's gaze. "Mr. Thompson," he mumbled, his voice barely audible. I'm really sorry. We were being stupid and disrespectful. It wasn't right." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "What we did was wrong, and I hope you can forgive us." He finally looked up, his eyes filled with genuine remorse. Sergeant Major Davis watched Jake intently, his expression softening slightly. He had seen enough young men make mistakes to know that sometimes, a little tough love was all they needed to set them on the right path. He waited to see if the other boys would follow Jake's lead. The air hung heavy with anticipation, the silence broken only by the distant chirping of birds. It was a moment of reckoning, a turning point for these young men. Would they truly learn from their mistakes, or would this apology be just another empty gesture? One by one, Mikey, Alex, and finally Ben stepped forward, echoing Jake's sentiments. "We're sorry, Mr. Thompson," Mikey said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "We were just trying to be funny, but it wasn't." Alex, usually so quiet, managed a small, "Yeah, we messed up." Ben, his face still flushed with shame, added, "We didn't mean to hurt you." Sergeant Major Davis nodded, satisfied that the boys had at least acknowledged their wrongdoing. He knew that words were just words, but he hoped that this experience would stay with them and guide their actions in the future. He turned to Mr. Thompson, waiting for his response. Mr. Thompson looked at the boys, his kind eyes searching their faces. He saw genuine remorse in their expressions, a glimmer of understanding that perhaps they had learned a valuable lesson. He knew that holding on to anger would only hurt him, and he had always believed in the power of forgiveness. He straightened his shoulders, a faint smile gracing his lips. "I accept your apology, boys," he said, his voice gentle but firm. However, Mr. Thompson continued, his gaze sweeping over the boys, "An apology is only the first step. Respect isn't just something you say, it's something you show in your actions." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Remember that everyone, regardless of their age or background, deserves to be treated with kindness and consideration. You never know what someone is going through." Sergeant Major Davis nodded in agreement. "Mr. Thompson is right," he said, his voice softening slightly. "Respect is earned, but it's also freely given. It's the foundation of a strong community, and it's something we should all strive for." He looked at the boys, his eyes conveying a message of both warning and hope. "You have a chance to make things right, to show Mr. Thompson and the rest of this town that you've learned from your mistake." Mr. Thompson smiled warmly. "Now," he said, "how about you boys help me carry these groceries home?" The boys readily agreed, eager to prove that they were truly sorry. As they walked towards Mr. Thompson's house, Sergeant Major Davis shared a story about his time in the Army, a time when respect and camaraderie were essential for survival. He spoke of the sacrifices made by countless soldiers, the importance of honoring their service, and the values they fought to protect. He didn't lecture the boys, but his words resonated with them, painting a vivid picture of the true meaning of courage and duty. He told them about Mr. Thompson's bravery during the war, a story Mr. Thompson always downplayed, but one that Sergeant Major Davis felt deserved to be told. He spoke of Mr. Thompson's selflessness, his unwavering loyalty, and his commitment to serving others. The boys listened intently, their initial embarrassment gradually replaced with a newfound respect for the elderly veteran walking beside them. They began to see Mr. Thompson not as an old-timer to be mocked, but as a hero who had dedicated his life to something bigger than himself. The walk home became a journey of transformation, a path towards understanding and empathy. When they arrived at Mr. Thompson's cozy little house, with its welcoming porch and flower-filled garden, the boys carefully placed the groceries on the kitchen counter. Mr. Thompson smiled, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "Thank you, boys," he said sincerely. "I appreciate your help." Jake, feeling a sense of responsibility, spoke up. "Mr. Thompson, is there anything else we can do to make up for what we did?" Mr. Thompson thought for a moment. "Well," he said, a mischievous glint in his eye, "I was planning on baking that apple pie for the neighborhood kids tomorrow. But I'm missing some ingredients now." The boys immediately understood. "We'll go to the store right now and get them," Mikey exclaimed, eager to redeem himself. "And we'll help you bake the pie," Alex added, surprising everyone, including himself. Ben nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, we'll make sure it's the best apple pie Harmony Creek has ever tasted." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "I appreciate that, boys. But the most important thing is that you've learned a valuable lesson today. Remember it, and let it guide your actions in the future." True to their word, the boys raced to Miller's grocery store, their skateboards left forgotten by the park bench. They carefully selected the freshest apples, the finest sugar, and the most fragrant spices, determined to make the best apple pie possible. They even splurged on a fancy new pie dish, hoping to impress Mr. Thompson with their thoughtfulness. The next day, the aroma of warm apple pie filled Mr. Thompson's house as the boys, under his gentle guidance, mixed, rolled, and baked. They laughed, they learned, and they worked together, their earlier animosity completely forgotten. As the pie baked, Mr. Thompson shared more stories, not just of war, but of life, of love, and of the importance of community. When the pie was finally ready, golden brown and bubbling with deliciousness, they carefully sliced it and shared it with the neighborhood children, who devoured it with gusto. As he watched the children's faces light up with joy, Jake realized that true satisfaction came not from causing trouble, but from making a positive difference in the lives of others. He glanced at Mr. Thompson, who smiled back knowingly. He finally understood. From that day forward, Jake and his friends were different. They traded their skateboards for gardening tools, their taunts for helping hands. They started volunteering at the local community center, offering to mow lawns, rake leaves, and run errands for the elderly residents of Harmony Creek. They visited Mrs. Gable, who lived alone and struggled with her groceries, and Mr. Henderson, a World War II veteran who loved to share stories of his time in the service. They learned about their neighbors' lives, their struggles, and their triumphs. They discovered the simple joy of making someone's day a little brighter. They realized that respect wasn't just something you gave to avoid trouble, it was something you earned through kindness and compassion. Harmony Creek, once disrupted by their mischievous antics, was now a community strengthened by their newfound empathy. And Mr. Thompson, watching them with a proud smile, knew that even the most rebellious hearts could be transformed by a little understanding and a lot of kindness. The 9 minutes of disrespect had led to a lifetime of respect and service. The end.